Welcome to Talking in Stations. I am Matterall, here to bring you the news from EVE Online. So today we're going to go over some of the big stuffs happening in EVE Online that you might have heard of. We'll talk about the war, get you updated on what's going on there with massive destruction of mostly structures, particular Fortizars, or sorry, Athenors. We also have an update on the situation with the eviction of Foxholers from Hole Control is attacking them, and we have a guest, Ashy, who's here with us today. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some market stuff and give you the weather. But yes, Foxholers are here in the house. We have Ashy with us. I want to say hi to Ashy. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Heart rate's coming down a bit.
All right, let's actually start with you. Tell us about what's going on with Foxholers.
So we're a C4 Corp with C3 and C2 statics. We've had Hole Control, after several months of planning it, finally come in for the kill on us. They've had a contract to kill us for 50 billion ISK, so they've been in here to try and evict us, basically. And as of about an hour ago, we managed to beat their Leshak, Nesta, Guardian, all sorts of E-War fleet with a shed load of Praxises and 2 Nestas.
Yeah, we're looking at that kill board right now, that kill report. A lot of Leshaks died there. Tell us about this fight. What happened?
So it's just pretty much the main defense of our Astra, right? In Wormhole, because if you get potted out, it's quite unlikely that you're going to get back in unless you take Hole Control. The actual Hole Control of owning your statics rather than the corp there. So what we did was just logged in literally everything we could, every ally that we could get in the hole, and gave them a praxis. We've had a stockpile of many of these. I won't say exactly how many, but we have a lot of these. Just gave everyone a ship. Had one guy who wanted to do Nestas, so he did Nestas, and away we went with just full DPS to see if it would work. It kind of did. I think the key to the whole fight though really was actually a very underused module, the target spectrum breaker.
Yeah, that's something that came into the game a few years ago. Can you describe what that target spectrum breaker does?
Yeah, so the target spectrum breaker is a battleship only module. You very rarely see it because obviously battleships only, and it's got a very specific effect. So what it does is the more locks that are on you, the more chance it'll have to just break those locks, right? It's not like a jam, it's not like ECM, it's a bit like a burst jammer. It'll just break locks left, right and center, and the more people that are going for you, the more chance it is that it's just going to go pop and they no longer have you locked. You will lose your own locks at the same time as well, so it's a bit crap for that. But if you're being primaried by 60 other people or more, then it could well save your life. You can stagger their aggro, or you could just stop them from primarying you at all. In the case of fighting against Leshaks and generic, Triglavian ramp-up ships, that gets particularly bad for them because they can't stay on you for a long time.
Right, and they depend on staying on you for a long time, right?
Yep, and having more sensor strength won't help them. This module does not affect. It's not affected by sensors, so any ship at all is going to be not jammed off, but target broken by the spectrum breaker.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't hear about that being used very much. I forgot how it even worked, but it's interesting. The more you have on you, the bigger the chance of you breaking it. It's kind of a way of saying, oh, I'm being primaried. Watch this. And it's a vanishing act.
Yeah, a little bit like that, but it's a vanishing act from your own logi as well.
Is there any after effects to it, or does it just break everybody's lock and then depends on everybody locking back up?
Well, what you'll do is you'll keep cycling it, and it'll cycle every 6 or 7 seconds, and it'll just try and break locks every single time. right? So you got that chance every few seconds, and that just really goes up and up with more targets. And that counts for drones as well. If they've got drones on you, they count for the target locks, as far as I'm aware. There is one downside to it though, which is another reason why you don't see it. It does give you a 25% scam res penalty on your ship, a bit like with the cloak.
So 1 second. That will. Easily taken care of. So that was. It also takes. Does it take some fuel? Is it like one of the armor version of that?
No, it's no fuel. You just run it when you like. It's even got its own special fancy animation.
Oh, I like that. Oh, well, that's cool. All right. Well, yeah, it's neat that you guys are using those kind of tools. So that's how you were able to defeat Lesheks. I like how that specifically would work against Lesheks, who really depend on holding on to you. Like they have to hold on to you and really to get to the damage they want to, because that's when the longer they hold on to you and are blasting you, the higher their damage ramps up, and that's what makes them so deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense since true relationship. If are popular in wormholes, I can see a definite use for it.
So again, about this conflict, you said that the group hull control that is attacking you and is meaning to evict you from your hull, which means destroy all your structures in there and essentially make you abandon your home in wormhole space. They've been hired. Do you know by who?
I have a suspicion, but I'm not going to make any guesses on air. I do have an idea of who it may be.
And would you know? Maybe this is something you can't answer either, but would you know why they would want you evicted?
If it's who I think it is, then I believe it's related to something that we did to them. So
Revenge.
Pretty much. Yeah. Except revenge costing 50 bill.
Right.
So far, that's not paid off for them.
Well, yeah. So this battle here cost them... already cost them 20 billion essentially. So do they have you reinforced at all? What's your condition right now?
Most of our structures should. I've not actually checked on them. I think they should be repairing if they didn't burst in before. But our main Astra with most of our stuff in it has repaired, which is great news. But they do have a hostile structure in here. For anyone who doesn't know, if you've not checked, guys, you do not have asset safety in wormholes. That's one of the things that takes this to a much higher stakes game. So everything that dies in the Citadel is going to drop. Everyone's ships, everyone's modules, every corp hangar in there is just going to drop in cans.
Yeah, a higher stakes game. They have you said a structure in there, so they're making themselves at home as they attack you. It's like a forward operating base. And
yes.
Do you have any intention of evacing stuff? And who has hull control at this time? Who controls a doorway to your wormhole?
We currently have hull control, which is good. So we currently have those doorways open ourselves. We've got the fleet right now. That can change, and that's one of the reasons why this can still swing either way. I'm not here to gloat or anything like that. Obviously, I'm pretty pumped about smacking people down with praxises. That's pretty great. But I'm not here to gloat, because if they were to then get hull control during one of our less active time zones, right? So let's say they've got more I'm not going to say in particular time zones, let's say they've got more people in one time zone than us, and they come on, they take hull control, and they bring in, say, 50 more people, right? They could definitely do that, and then it's just GG for the most part. We can bring the praxis out again, but, they'll be prepared that second time.
Yeah. I like the praxis. They look like giant earrings to me. So you kill these guys with some style.
Yeah, I believe most of them were actually called Spiky Boys, and we took a good few screenshots when we undocked. Yeah,
so you have hull control, so things are going pretty well for you. You defended your structure so far. You control the doorways into your system. However, they're still in your system. How do you see this playing out? Do they have... there's no timers right now, so there's no deadline like there is in the other wormhole eviction that we talked about yesterday. So this is really you're just going to duke it out until at some point they either get discouraged and leave, or your structures have a final timer that that you're going to have to defend, right? Those are the two
Yeah,
sides.
so we're going to try and remove their structure and get them out of the hole, ideally. There's nothing stopping them from coming back at a later date if they wanted to. You can't keep whole control of your own home forever, or you just won't have content. So
Yeah.
this can always happen again, like I say, and they can always bring so many allies. This sort of thing happened to us about a year and a half ago, maybe it was just a year ago. Around the end of kind of what people called World War Wormhole or something. And that was when Hard Knocks and Inner Hell and Laserhawks brought in about 100 Lokis to evict us. And for one, we weren't prepared for that. Two, it was 100 Lokis. Anything we brought out would have been one shot.
Yeah.
That same thing could happen again, right?
Right. So, okay, but good news for your side so far, and you had a heart-pounding battle that you came out ahead in. Their Lesheks went down. Your Praxis, a lot of them went down too, but you survived it. It was about a 66% efficiency, which I think is actually a really good ratio in a good fight. And
Yeah.
your structures are good for now.
Yeah, I think I can thank CCP for the frigate escape bay as well.
Did that help? Did that play a role?
It meant that we could reship.
Uh-huh.
Kept going out with new Praxis.
So you kept coming through, right? And since it's your hole, you have the most amount of equipment there. Which
yeah,
is...
this is what we specifically prepared for. I mean, one of the reasons why we chose to Praxis, despite the bonuses actually being good, right, and the slot layout actually being pretty good for what it does, it's because it's just so damn cheap, right? You can get hundreds of these for a pittance compared to like a Matterall fleet or a Leshak fleet.
Yeah.
So you can just afford to give out so many.
Right.
And you also don't need to take the cargo space to bring them in because of how you get them.
Yeah, you do pay a premium for doing that though. So when I did bring in this horde of Praxis, I did pretty much bring it in on my own, one by one. That was good fun.
How long did that take you?
Oh well, I mean, I did have a lot of help from Xiaoxin, who's I'm actually just a brilliant shout out to Xiaoxin there. He's one member of my command team. Acted as a quartermaster in manning a citadel. Did a hell of a lot of work in helping with this. I did have a lot of help from those guys, but it took us a good while because what I was doing to save mass on holes and to save time was just bringing them in one at a time in a DST each.
Yeah.
But you can bring them in as unclaimed rewards boxes that don't take volume if you have access to those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You pay the premium for. People charge about 30-40 mil extra on the cost of the normal Praxis. And when you're buying loads of them, it ends up really adding up.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. So these things are gifts from CCP for something that happened in the past. You can find them on the market in their boxed form. And in doing so, you end up being able to move them into wormholes without having to fly them in like Ashy had to do. But you pay extra for that. It's interesting that people know that. So they cost 30 million more than they should. Interesting. One last thing. How fast, like let's say when you guys are fighting, how tense is it before you find that frigate hole where you can come back in and reship? Is it the first person that dies goes looking for that hole frantically to make sure they can get back in?
Well, ideally, you're going to have someone who's scanning and potentially even rolling holes mid-fight. But it's not all about the frigate hole. Usually, it's the whole frigate hole thing was something that happened like a year ago. That whole World War Wormhole thing, where a lot of what happened was really defined by the presence of frigate holes appearing and letting people get Kikimoras and stuff in, and then taking hull control to get bigger ships in. So no, there's been no frigate holes involved in any of this, and in fact, they're very very rare in C4 space.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that's how you were able to get those people back in. But
we
were talking
theoretically.
Theoretically, that helps.
Yeah, theoretically, if there was a frigate hole, then it becomes kind of a free for all. Anyone can get stuff in at that point.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting.
Yeah, all this. Yeah, good.
I was just going to say, in this case, a lot of the way that we got people in was just by really sneaky scanning. To be honest, just getting a scanner out. We've not got that many particularly good scanners, but we've got some really, really fast guys. Big shout out to Llewellyn in Foxholers in particular, and to Tango as well.
Yeah,
if those guys are listening.
that's great. All right, well, great, and good luck to you in this eviction defense that you have here against hole control. I'm sure you'll do fine. Let me ask you, in case you guys don't know, I'm speaking with Ashy. I said at the beginning, and I'll just say it again. Ashy in space, right? What's your website?
Yep, Ashy in .space.
And I'm not sure I got it, but let's just try. I totally didn't get it. Okay, Ashy in space.
If you Google Ashy Eve, you'll find me.
Probably the better way to go. And this is their website. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful website with some great articles in it that are written by you, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much all me. Did the guest posts recently, and I've had a few guest posts here and there, but for the most part, it's my site, and I'm actually on the partnership program as a result of this as well.
Very well deserved. That was a no-brainer from my perspective, but there it is. There's the website. Check it out, and you should visit it often. There's also something that you made that was really good, and I don't want anybody to ever forget it. And this is the jukebox where you put the music back into Eve inside the walking in stations, captain's quarters, which are nice. And there's a list of all the songs, and you just play them on your own with the name, which is hard to find actually, and the length. And it's not just the soundtrack, but it's just got everything. It's got all the music from EVE Online in here, and so you have it on tap at ashy.space.
Yeah, for the newer guys, just a quick thing on that.
Sure.
Eve used to have walking in stations. I've had a few people in the past who said to me, "Nice fake, but Eve doesn't let you walk in stations." And that's what it actually used to look like, and that's what the jukebox used to look like.
Yeah, you can see the Megatron in the back. Now, funny enough, the jukebox got taken out like a long time ago, and then the walking in stations portion, the captain's quarters, got taken out only about a year ago. So it's and this interface actually looks like 2013, right around there. So it's kind of like the height of EVE Online's population and story generation, all that kind of stuff. It's about 2013, but that was true for all video games, right? 2011, 2013. Yeah. Well, cool. All right, Ashley, thanks very much. Before you go, can you give us your observations on the other eviction that's happening between, say, Hard Knocks Laser Hawks and Cindy, or what is it, Syndicate?
Singularity Syndicate.
Singularity Syndicate, yeah.
To be honest, I haven't really even looked into it. I've been so preoccupied with getting people into the hole, just making sure we have everything in place and getting everyone ready to fight, that it's not really left any time to do that. So
yeah, you're pretty busy.
No, I think, I don't know, based on seeing the fleet comp of Munins against, I don't actually know what the defense fleet is, but with a Munin fleet at that size, I would put Laserhawks down to win that, I imagine. Yeah. Laserhawks and those guys, they do know how to fly an arty fleet quite well.
Yeah, and I think that's what we got yesterday, right, Gregor?
Yes, we had Cyrus on yesterday, and he sounded like he was expecting to lose the hole.
Yeah, I mean, a concerted effort will always be quite effective for the attackers, because attackers can always come back, right?
Yep. Okay, I'm just going to take a second to remind you guys that we have a newsletter in-game. You can subscribe to it. It is TIS News is the mailing list. So if you don't know how to do that, ask someone how to subscribe to a mailing list in-game. And probably this is arcane knowledge, but you open up your mail window in the game. At the bottom left is mailing list, and it says add mailing list. So if you click on that button, you'll be able to type it in, but you must know the name of it. And so type in TIS News. and that'll put you on the mailing list, and you'll get a little email every day about what's going on in EVE Online. It's usually player-made news. So what we talk about in this show will be put into that newsletter. So if you miss a show, you can always just get the mail for it. Great. Well, Ashy, thanks very much for hanging out with us and talking us through what's going on with you guys. You seem to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and maybe I'll see you soon at some point.
All right, good. Thanks.
All right, see ya.
Bye. Okay, let's move on to some war news in the south. Looking at Delve now. Let's actually go to Dotlan. Open up Dotlan and see what's going on here. We've been looking at structures. That's kind of what's been the target. But we always want to look at iHubs. That is the power. The power play is in the iHubs. The iHubs are the infrastructure hubs, and those allow people to build, but they're also the permission to have structures that are built like what we call roads or jump bridges in the game. And so what happens is if you own the iHub, then you basically control the infrastructure. And so a sign that a place is being destroyed is to see those iHubs get destroyed, because that means the infrastructure for that group that own the area is destroyed or will be destroyed soon after. Okay, so we're looking at, there's a couple constellations that were taken over. I think it's in the north here, but you can see, unfortunately, Test is yellow, but so is Goon Swarm. So it's hard to see, but Test is a little more yellow than, or a little darker yellow than Condi is, or Goon Swarm. But we're looking at, looks like Horde jumped into, I think it was Horde and Test has jumped into Fountain, and you can see all this stuff that's glowing here, and I'll make that bigger for you. In Fountain is under attack.
Villy had been saying in TIS Discord that the purpose was to he thought it would be a bigger morale hit to the initiative to see their home attacked again right after they deployed to fight elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. From the Imperium side, that is a sign of a small victory in that it was announced that they wanted to, I think it was announced from the Imperium side, so this is what they're saying, is that ProGod himself said that they are hitting Fountain to try to keep initiative there on the defense instead of going on the offense in legacy space, and therefore that is a bit of a victory. It means that Test is afraid of losing space in their home areas of Esoteria or near Curse. I think Curse and Great Wildlands is where the initiative has deployed to. Let's take a quick look at that area. If we look at the universe, you can see that Curse is way over here. So it's not like Stain and Catch and Impasse or Stain and Esoteria. That's where Bastion was doing a lot of work on legacy space. It's over on the other side of Catch. And I'll try to get to the world view of Stain here, and I'll back out so you can see. This will throw me way out, but so they're way over here on the east. If that's where initiative is, I haven't confirmed that they're there, but that's where I've heard they went. Looking at initiative, a few corps have left to Goon Swarm. This is actually not recent, but the Project Valhalla is recent. That was yesterday. They were moving out of the initiative, and I believe they're going to Goon Swarm. So the last three corporations that have left, and they're pretty big, right? About 200 each. Well, this one's about 100. Have all left to Goon Swarm, except Project Valhalla. They may be going to Goon Swarm. That's the rumor.
You just don't know until 24 hours later when they can join another alliance.
Right, and then it'll light up, and then it will be official. Otherwise, it's just all speculation until that point. But the initiative losing some people. And actually, if we jump out to alliances and alliance movements, we can see that several groups are losing people. And somebody speculated on Reddit that that's because there's a wave of botting bans, but that, of course, is not confirmed at all. But Mixberry, I looked, is an alliance that's just getting started, so it could be a shuffle of people coming and going until they kind of get settled. Fraternity lost about 300 members. So did Slice, Solaris, Conium. Don't know how to say it. We call
Slice. They had a corp which moved to Fraternity. That's what happened.
Okay. Silent Company is big, huge high-sec group. They're 32,000 big, so losing 290 could just be attrition. What's interesting to me, and this is what I wanted to get to, is Intrepid Crossing. I was looking at them lately because as I was analyzing Delve and who was fighting in it, I came across Intrepid Crossing. And they're an old group in EVE Online. They actually used to live up in, I believe it was Tribute Vale area, or even further north, maybe in Branch. A long time ago, talking about 2010, 2011, and they've been around and survived. I'm not sure how, but lately I looked and they were only at like 2 or 3 members, and I thought, well, 2 or 3 members of Intrepid Crossing are actually kicking. That's kind of interesting, but there really was nobody in there. Well, they just picked up 200 people. Their member count is up to 1,300, so something's going on with Intrepid Crossing.
Yeah, from what I heard, Kazon, which is one of the other big alliance movements, merged into them. They were both renting in drone region space, so that doesn't seem entirely odd.
Yeah. Intrepid Crossing's been around since this time. Wow, almost exactly 14 years. November 30th is when they were created in 2006. So that's very interesting. And of course they have 1,000 members, but in the actual active PvPers on Zkill board, I only saw for that period of 7 days 3 members. So it was interesting that they were around, like they even existed. So this is interesting to see. That looks like they're reconstituting, and maybe because they went inactive for a while, I believe, or shuttered, or maybe they just fell off the radar in some way. But yeah. All right, so where were we? We were talking about Delve. Actually, we were talking about Fountain. We're going through Delve. And how 2 constellations had been attacked by Test and Horde. And so the reality of the situation is it looks like the intent is what Gobbins announced that he was going to do, which is a re-rinsing of Fountain. As you remember, at the beginning of the war, about 6 months ago in June, July, you saw Fountain have a really stiff resistance at first for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then at some point there was a battle where it was realized that the initiative was completely outgunned by the combination of Test and even Fraternity and NC Dot and PL. Like that combination was too much. So they retreated essentially, tactically, all the way back down to Delve, and then Fountain was really run over by Horde. There was a ton of Horde activity, and they took over the place over a period of about 2 weeks. Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Every time there was not a fleet going out, Horde just had this spreadsheet of which structures that were going through. So the standing fleet just went through all the medium structures. So you only needed to form an actual fleet with an FC for a larger stuff.
Yeah. Do you remember how many structures were in Fountain? How many were destroyed?
A lot. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a lot.
I want to say 400, maybe more. Maybe it was more. That number sticks with me. And there was, I think, 5 or 6 keep stars that were destroyed as well. There were forts in this area. So all that was destroyed. But as soon as Pappy switched gears and moved to Aquarius, which was just at that point just fresh off building keep stars that would take them right into the heart of Aquarius, you saw that huge capital fleet move south. And when that happened, the initiative came back, and in a period of 4 days was able to take over about half or a third of Fountain, if not more. And they ended up within a few days conquering most of it, but not all of it. You can still see the green down here is Losecnia. not Losechnia Shulpin, is it? Yeah, it is Losechnia Shulpin, LSH. And those are hardcore Russian pirate whale hunters. And so they have enough, but they have enough juice to keep a constellation or two, and they never completely got wiped out. But you did see Nullsechnia get taken out of the constellation up here. I forget what that constellation's called. Let me have a look. Centaur. I think they were up in Centaur near Cloud Ring, but they were taken out by the initiative, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they ever intended to stay there. NSH is mainly deployed to Syndicate right now to do their own thing, and they still hold a lot of SOV in cache on the border between PanFam and Fire Coalition space.
Yeah, in the south, cache. C-A-C-H-E. So anyway, but the moral of that story is that Initiative was able to come back and reconquer and paint the narrative of you didn't take much away from us. We got it all back in about 5 days, and that was mostly true. But the areas needed to when the iHubs were actually put down, they needed to tick up to 30 days. In other words, they needed to go undisturbed for 30 days in order for the infrastructure to be built that's needed to kind of really use the place. But there was mining going on, there was some ratting going on, there was some money making going on in Fountain, so it was something that was being used not only by the Initiative, but also by some Goonswarm guys. The structures were all destroyed. You're right, Nick. They didn't get the structures back, but they were able to start putting in new structures, although I think they took a very slow approach to that. They didn't want to get too invested in the place. But over time, those iHubs did mature to 30 days, because we're talking, this was about 2 or 3 months ago. And I think more and more stuff was being deployed. That's an assumption. I'm not sure that that's true, because I don't have any statistics on it. But I do believe the Initiative wanted to come back to Fountain and remain there as an active presence to disrupt anybody who wanted to move in, to make sure nobody took their space. So they were living in what you see, this little white area up here, which is NPC Delve. I think it's owned actually by, it's the Phoenix constellation, and that's actually owned by the Serpentis NPCs. So essentially it was a resistance by the Initiative to let anybody else handle Fountain. So they intended to kind of keep that place warm for themselves, let those iHubs tick up, and then at some point after the war, they would figure out what to do at that point. Now, that is what was going on. In the meantime, down here in Delve, Aquarius was penetrated and destroyed for the most part. There's still some structures in Aquarius. Then they moved into, and I'm talking about Pappy here, the invading forces moved into NPC Delve. They solidified their keep star there. That's the bubble wrap keep star. And then from there, they were able to they would basically burn down constellation after constellation, put up their own iHubs. They traded iHubs for a bit, but for the most part, you can see that the iHubs right now belong to, Delve is really split 50-50, it looks like. And they're still constantly wrestling for iHubs. Now remember, those iHubs give you permission to build infrastructure. And once it gets to 30 days, you're able to put down a Sino jammer. And once that jammer goes down, you're able to control who comes in and out of that system from above, let's call it. Instead of going through the door, going through the gate, you have to, you can jump in from on top. So if you control the gate, if you control the door, and you lock off anybody from coming in, then you have total control of that system, and you can do what you want to the structures. That's how you kill a keep star without it being a giant contest that takes 10 hours with thousands and thousands and thousands of ships and trillions in ISK lost. So when a keep star matures to 30 days, you can assume that a keep star in that system will be taken down and destroyed. So the Imperium has devised a doomsday clock where they list out where their keep stars are and what the iHub maturity level is. And so those are their targets, and that is one of their key performance indicators. If we can keep destroying their iHubs and never letting them get to 30 days, then they can't take out those keep stars without more risk to the effort. And that's how they're showing that they are actively defending to their own member base. So it's kind of a scoreboard for them to look at, to say, here's something we can look at that's measurable. And on the other side of it, Test and Billy and Pappy are saying we're in no hurry. So even if you reset us 2 or 3 or 4 times, that's only part of our objective. The other part is to tire you out. And so that's where the war is in Delve. It's a fight of will. Everybody's still engaged. This war is definitely delivered, and it will continue to deliver. It looks like the Imperium now is, in a sense, split in half, because you have what was called the Helm's Deep strategy, that is the system E30I, as the gateway to the back constellations where they reside. Those are all Sinojam, so you can't jump into them except with Black Ops. And at the same time, the road to Fountain is interfered with by a keep star that landed in T5Z. So they kind of control. Pappy kind of controls this area here in the middle, and that means that they're in between Goonswarm and the Initiative. Again, the Initiative has apparently deployed far away anyway, so Fountain is basically undefended at this moment, at this time, I believe. So that's where we are with the war. It's been a great war so far. Some big fights, some historic fights. You've also seen really constant day after day after day struggles. And that's the last thing I'll talk about here, is the amount of structures that are being destroyed is unbelievable. Are you going to say something, Gregorian?
Yeah, the big surprise is that the fits on those structures seem to have been stripped.
Right. Well, I'll come back to this Fortizar that just got killed. And there's actually 2 more of those faction Fortizars going down later tonight if they're not defended. But we look here, a lot of the Anthenors are going down. These are refineries, right? Moon mining refineries. And what's happening is, and this is very interesting, the Imperium owners, or maybe it's Goonswarm, maybe it's the owners, but they're stripping the fuel out and stripping it down so they don't actually lose more than the kill mail. So let's have a look at a typical one and see if it's actually fit. And you can see it's not. So I'll pick another one out of random here. Like this one here. Yeah, you can also see this one's completely stripped. Now that seems like a smart move, right? You don't want to lose that extra money, so you're going to take those things off. You're going to take the fuel, and all they're going to do is blow up this structure. Here's the problem with that. If you don't have fuel in these structures, they become abandoned, right? Remember the Forsaken Fortizar? These are essentially, or Forsaken Fortress update. These are basically Forsaken Anthenors, which means they have no asset safety, which means that anybody who had stuff in these structures will lose it, and it will loot drop all the stuff that is in these structures. So it is a field day for the attackers, because every time they destroy something, it is easier, and it's got a huge payoff. So I don't know what that strategy is, because I believe that the rhetoric coming out of the Imperium when the attack was happening was that Delve was a fortress, and you would have to work really hard to destroy every single step you take. And that has not been the case. We've seen flashpoints versus keep stars that were tremendous, like nothing we've ever seen before. Incredible amount of resistance and successful resistance for keep stars, but we have not seen that for structures. The structures appear to be forsaken, and in the last 5 days, Pappy has taken out 249, 250 structures, and that's about 50 structures a day. So there's no resistance there. And I don't know why you wouldn't leave the fuel there, leave these things to have timers and create more work for your opponents.
Yeah, I was confused when they started letting their structures go abandoned, because of all the times when they said they'd force us to go through so many timers to remove structures from Delve. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
Right. Well, maybe they have a secret plan. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the Imperium has made, in retrospect, wise moves, but this may have been a hopeless situation anyway when you're outnumbered 2-1 or 2.5-1, as we did the numbers the other day. Sorry, not 2.5, 2.2 to 1. It's not a 3 it's not a 1 versus 3, or what do you call it? The ratio is not 1 to 3. The ratio is more like 1 to 2, which is still significant, and participation's been high on both sides. So it's very interesting. The rhetoric is supposed to help you. The rhetoric and the strategy is supposed to help you whittle down your opponent. And both opponents have been so experienced at warfare in EVE Online that the psychological warfare does not appear to work. So targeting by poverty doesn't work. There's been some kind of a program to make sure that the poorest members of your coalition are taken care of on the Pappy side. And the call to arms and all the rhetoric that follows and all the propaganda that follows about Test being lazy and not working hasn't driven a wedge between Horde and NCPL and Test yet that we've seen. So it's interesting. The fighting in EVE Online happens on a physical level or a digital level, but it also happens on a psychological level. And we've seen really a lot of resistance to those psychological games of the past. But strategically, if we look at it, and I'll wrap up with this, Pappy is on the march. They're having successes. There was a plan that was publicly talked about before, which was to come in from multiple fronts. This is a favored plan of Vince Draken. He always likes to attack on multiple fronts. He doesn't feel like you can take on someone as big as the Imperium with one single front. That might have changed with the number situation here, but usually the Imperium is the one that outswarms you, hence the name Goon Swarm. But they wanted to take down what the Imperium called, just a floodplain. They took down Fountain, the floodplain of Fountain. They took down Quarius. That was the entry point, and they actually took down Period Basis. After initial resistance, those 3 regions have fallen. It's now down to Delve. Delve is severed in half. The structures are burning down, and so the Imperium is literally in the back foot. But they are not dead, and they are still incredibly dangerous. So at any time, you can have a critical battle that really works against Pappy, and Pappy can be broken, just like a giant flesh golem hit in the right spot, like the heel or something. And this thing can turn around completely. And we've seen it almost happen when Boat did an incredible bombing run with Sister Bliss. The both of them did a great battle bombing run that wiped out the offensive effort of Pappy, and it was a huge discouragement. So we can see how things can turn around just like that. But right now, clearly the Imperium is in trouble. All right, that's the war report. Didn't mean for it to be that long, actually. We have just a little bit more to talk about. And actually, this kind of fits into what we were talking about. I won't play the video per se, but I will. Let me mute it out first. But this is a video by Pandemic Legion that I think is on Reddit. And it's really the war so far. It's the path to Delve. And it does, in a comical way, take you through the stages that we kind of just reviewed, from Fountain all the way into Delve. This is a pretty comprehensive video, although I wouldn't call it authoritative. It's definitely from one point of view. Here's a link for you, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well. So check that out when you get a chance. All right, that brings us to the end of the program. We were going to talk about some economic news and some weather reporting, but we'll save that for tomorrow. It's nothing urgent. And yeah, that's everything. Gregorian, do you have anything else?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us on Talking in Stations. Remember, we'll remind you, sign up for TIS News mail list in the game so you can get our summary every day, every weekday, actually, in game. And if you can, support this work by subscribing to us through Patreon. That's Patreon/Matterall. Or talk about, I just read a note. Or So Patreon is what we prefer, but if you wanted to subscribe here with your Prime, we would appreciate that very much as well. And if you want to watch our videos, they're on YouTube under Talking in Stations, so youtube.com/talkinginstations. And one last thing, we actually just put this up today here in the notes, or in the station. You can see, sorry, in Twitch, you can see at the bottom there that if you buy Plex through Talking in Stations, we get a percentage of that. And all this helps us with our subscriptions that we have to pay for and the equipment that we want to buy to upgrade our effort. So if you can, please help us out. If you can't, we understand. The people that actually help us out don't want anything in return. They normally just say, I like the work. I want to do that. I want to make sure it keeps going for other people. And that's really cool. So everybody who's our Patreons and everybody who subscribes to our channels, those guys are doing it for you. And we really appreciate that. And a lot of them even want to remain anonymous, which is even cooler. So we just have the best fans and we have the best watchers of our videos. So thanks very much, everyone. We are now going to raid a friend, and we will see you tomorrow on Talking in Stations.